Today we are going to be starting on page 22 in your note packet, and we're going to begin at the top. Go ahead and take some time, pause the video, go through this warm-up. You're finding values for A and B that make each side have the same value. So I want to make the left side equal the right side. So go ahead and pause the video, try this on your own, and then continue playing to check your work. All right, so for the first one here, you could have anything that divides to give you -2. So for example, I had -4 divided by 2. There are many different things you could have, but again, the point here is that we want to make sure that it ends up being a -2, okay? So then for number 2 here, we want two numbers that divide to give us 2. So I said 4 divided by 2, okay? So key difference, number 1, we want to make sure that it's negative. Number 2, we want to make sure that it's positive. Then for number 3, we're subtracting and we want to get a -2. So that means that we want the first number to be the smaller number and the second one to be the bigger number. Okay, those are the key points that we're looking for that first part there. Now we're going to look down here at 10.2, a more general slope formula. So we are going to plot these 2 points, then use a ruler to draw the line that passes through them. Okay, you guys can use like the edge of your calculator, your ID, anything like that. So if we start at 111, we're here, and then 8, 2. I'm going to use my ruler here to connect these 2 dots. Okay, so we want to be as precise as we can be to connect these 2. It's a little too much there. Okay. All right, so we've connected these 2. Once we have those lines, the line drawn through the points, we can look at question 2. So I want you guys to do this on your own. Do you expect the slope of the line to be positive or negative, and how can you tell? So take a minute, pause the video, and answer that question. So we can expect the slope to be negative because the line is going down. And whenever we're looking at lines to figure this out, we're always looking from left to right. So if I start at the leftmost point and follow the line to the right side of the graph, if it's going down, it's negative, up is positive. Now we're going to look at our actual slope formula. So how do I find the slope of a line? So if we have 2 points, if I have 2 points, we're going to call them x1, y1, and x2, y2. All of our points are always written with x first and then y. And these numbers here are just telling me that this is the first point and this is the second point. Okay, so we have x value from the first point, y value from the first point, x value from the second, y from the second. Okay, so to find our slope formula here, to talk about slope, we usually use the letter m, and that's going to be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, you could have those switched, so you could do y1 minus y2, x1 minus x2. That part doesn't matter, whichever one you put first, but what does matter is that if you use the y value from the second point first, you have to use the x value from the second point. Okay, if you use the y value from the second point second, you're going to use the x value from the second point second. So they just need to line up. Whichever one's first has to be first for top and bottom. Okay, so we are going to go through these 4 pairs of numbers here, and I want you guys to go ahead and use this formula. Again, pause the video and try for all 4 of these. We can do one together if you'd like. Let's do that one here. So we can look at our points. This would be x1, y1, x2, y2. So to find our slope, we have y2, which is 1, minus y1, which is 4, x2, which is 7, minus x1, which is 12, okay? So we're making sure to match up. This is from the second point, that's from the second point. This is from the first, so that's from the first, okay? And we always want to make sure y values are on top, x values are on the bottom. So if we go through and subtract these, 1 minus 4 gives me negative 3. 7 minus 12 gives me negative 4. So then we always want to simplify. The only thing I can simplify here is the sign. But when we have a negative over a negative, that's going to give me a positive. So we end up with a slope of 3/4. Okay? So go ahead and try the next 3 on your own and then continue playing to check your answers. So for B, you remember could set this up the other way and have the 11 and 4 first, but we should get 1 for our final answer. For C, we should get 1 over 599, and for D, we should also get 1. So go ahead and double check your work if needed, pause here if you need to. Remember the order can be different, so the way that you found the points could be the reverse order, so just make sure that you're double checking your answers here. Okay, oops. For the next part, we are going to look at this situation here. So we have Elena borrowed some money from her brother. She pays him back by giving him the same amount every week. The graph shows how much she owes after each week. Okay, so that's what like each x value represents here is the time in weeks and then the amount owed. So we can see our graph over here. Go ahead and do the 3 reads with this. So read it once, think about the context. Read it the second time, think of anything that's countable or any numbers, and then read it again to get to the questions. So part A, how much did Elena borrow? That's going to be right here. That's our y-intercept. Okay, y-intercept is our starting value. So if we look at the way that our graph is set up, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we get to 5. So each tick mark on our y-axis represents 1. So if 15 is right here, we have 16, 17, 18. So she borrowed $18. Our next question is, what is the slope of the line? So we need to find 2 points that intersect at like an even crossing. So we're looking to see, where does a line, a horizontal line, cross a vertical line? Okay, so for example, this point here would be a point we could use, okay? We wouldn't want to use something like this because that's in between 1 and 2 weeks, okay? So we want to make sure that we're at an even amount for weeks and for money. So if we look at our slope here, we want to think about, we have our slope formula. Remember, we have y's on top and x's on the bottom. So one symbol that we can use here is a triangle. Okay, so we have triangle y over triangle x. The triangle means change. So change in y over the change in x. So if we start at this first point here, we're going down 1, 2, 3. So that is a negative 3 change because we went down and then we went over 1. Okay, so our change in y was negative 3 and our change in x was a plus 1, which gives me a slope of negative 3. Okay, our next question, explain how you know whether the slope is positive or negative. The slope would be negative here. Okay, so we know the slope is negative because we just found it. Also, the line is going down in our graph, but also with the context, right? She borrowed money and she's paying him back. This is the amount that she owes. So if she's paying him back, the amount that she owes is going to decrease. So that's what we can use for our reasoning here. So go ahead, take a minute to write that down. So the slope is negative because the amount of money she owes is decreasing as she pays him back. Next question, what does the slope represent in this situation? Make that a little bit bigger. There we go. So we want to, when we're interpreting slope, we want to interpret it in this context. The change in y over change in x. So how is y changing as x changes? So y is going down by 3, and that is the amount of money that she owes. So we can start with that. Let me see. Go here. Okay. Oops. Okay. The amount of money owed decreases by $3 every week, okay? Because x is just changing by 1, so that would be every week. And then lastly, how much time will it take for Elena to pay back all the money she borrowed? This is when our y value equals 0. So we are looking at our y-axis here and where our line intersects that, which is at 6. So that would be 6 weeks. We want to label our answer with what our axis is labeled with. That is it for today. If you guys have any questions, please write them down in your notes and then make sure to ask them when I see you next. Have a great day.